Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start with a bit of a confession.
Oh,
I am someone who finds a weird amount of comfort in a dictionary.
okay. I think I know where this is going.
There's just something so satisfying about the idea that every word has its own little slot, a definition, a right way and a wrong way to use it.
It feels organized.
It feels safe. It's like a place for everything and everything in its place.
Exactly. But the source material we're covering today, meaning In Texts and Contexts by Linda Arwa and her colleagues, it pretty much takes that sense of safety and just throws it right out the window.
It really does. It completely upends that idea that language is some kind of static code.
Right.
Instead, it argues that language is much more like a messy, dynamic social game where the rules are always changing depending on who's playing.
And where they're standing on the field.
Yes.
Exactly.
So the mission for this deep dive is to trace that shift. We're going to look at how linguistics moved from viewing words as these little containers of meaning to viewing language as a tool or even a weapon and sometimes a physical action.
And by the end, you'll understand why a penguin is considered a bad bird and why saying I apologize is actually a physical act.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's start with the old guard. The source talks about the structuralists in the early 20th century, folks like Saussure and Bloomfield.
Right.
They were the ones who loved the code,
Yeah.
right? The system.
Oh, they were the code breakers. They looked at language and they saw this perfect, almost mathematical system. Saussure made this very famous distinction between lang and parole.
Okay, my French is not my strong suit, so help me out.
Lang is the abstract rulebook. It's the perfect grammar system that exists in our collective minds.
So the theory.
The theory. And parole is the actual speech, the stutters, the slang, the interruptions, basically the stuff coming out of our mouths right now.
And the structuralists, they much preferred the rule book.
They were obsessed with it. They thought actual speech was just too messy, too chaotic to study properly. They wanted to understand the machine, not the kind of messy way people actually drove the car.
And they treated words as, what was it, Aristotelian categories.
Yeah, which just means rigid boundaries. A thing is either inside the box or it's outside the box. A bachelor is an unmarried man. Period.
No gray area.
None. If you're an unmarried man, you are in the bachelor box.
But real life is all gray area.
Exactly. And that's where the disruptors come in. The source highlights a few key figures who started poking holes in this whole container theory.
Okay.
One of the first big blows came from Ogden and Richards with their semiotic triangle.
That sounds like a Bermuda Triangle for words.
In a way, it kind of is. Before them, people pretty much assumed there was a direct line between a word, say, the sound table, and the actual object, the wooden thing in your kitchen.
You say table, I picture the table. Seems direct.
But Ogden and Richards said, hold on, no, there is no direct line. The word goes to your brain first. It triggers a thought or a reference. Then that thought picks out the object in the world.
Ah, so the connection is indirect. It has to pass through the filter of my mind.
Precisely. And because it goes through the mind, it becomes subjective. My mental image of a dog might be a big golden retriever.
And mine might be a tiny chihuahua.
Right. The word dog doesn't contain the animal. It just triggers a concept for us to work with.
That makes so much sense. But then you have Ludwig Wittgenstein. And I feel like he's the one who really took a sledgehammer to the whole dictionary idea.
He absolutely did. He came up with this concept of language games. He argued that you shouldn't ask what a word means. You should ask how it's used.
The source used the example of the word game itself, which is brilliant. I actually tried to play along, trying to find one definition that fits every single type of game.
It's way harder than it looks, isn't it?
It's impossible. Okay, so games are competitive.
What about Ring Around the Rosie? Or a kid just throwing a ball against a wall by himself? There's no competition there.
Okay, good point. Fair enough. Games have rules.
What about when a child is just playing pretend? I'm a dinosaur.
Ha!
The rules are being made up as they go.
Okay. Games happen for amusement, for fun.
Tell that to a professional athlete. For them, it's a job. It's a grind.
I give up. There's no single thread that ties them all together.
And Wittgenstein called this family resemblance. Think of a big family. You might have your mother's nose, your brother has her chin, a cousin has the grandfather's eyes.
Right.
There isn't one single feature that everyone shares, but you can still tell you're all a family.
It's a web of similarities, not a neat little box.
Correct. And that leads directly to the problem with categories, which is where Eleanor Roche and prototype theory come in.
This is the penguin stuff.
This is the penguin stuff. So if I ask you right now to just draw a bird on a napkin, what do you draw?
I draw a generic robin-looking thing,
Hmm.
little beak, wings, stick legs, the classic bird shape.
Exactly. That's the prototype. It's the center of the category. It's the best example of a bird in your mind. Now, is a penguin a bird?
Biologically, yes, of course.
But does it fit your drawing? It doesn't fly, it swims, it waddles around like a little person in a tuxedo.
It's definitely an oddball. Weird bird.
And Rosh argued that in our minds, not in biology, but in how we use language, the penguin is a peripheral member of the category. It's a bad bird. It literally takes our brains a fraction of a second longer to categorize it than it does a robin.
So categories have a center, and then these fuzzy edges.
Just like meaning itself. And once you see that categories aren't rigid, you can see how we play with them. This gets us to Lakoff and Johnson and conceptual metaphor.
This part, I have to say, it blew my mind a little. The idea that metaphor isn't just for poets.
No, it's fundamental to how we think. Take the concept of an argument. How do we talk about arguments in English?
We say, I shut down his points, or he attacked my position, or I won the argument.
Right. The core metaphor is argument is war. We map the physical experience of fighting onto the abstract experience of disagreeing.
We don't say, I danced with his ideas.
If we did, we'd have a totally different culture of debate. If the metaphor was argument is a dance, the goal wouldn't be to win, it would be to perform well together.
So the language we use to describe the thing actually changes the nature of the thing itself.
Now you're getting it. And that is the perfect pivot to the second big movement the source covers, functionalism.
Okay, so we're shifting from what language looks like to what language does.
Exactly. Language is a tool. And one of the most interesting groups here was the Prague School. They developed this idea of theme and rhyme.
Which sounds like a very obscure law firm.
It really does.
Yeah.
But it's actually about how we direct the listener's attention. Think of it like a movie camera.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say we have a dog and a man. If I say, the dog bit the man, who's the camera on? Who's the star?
The dog. The dog is the main character of that sentence.
Right. The dog is the theme. It's the starting point. The biting is the rhyme. That's the new information. But what if I use the passive voice? The man was bitten by the dog.
Now, the camera's on the man. He's the victim. The dog is almost an afterthought.
The facts are identical. The reality is the same. But the meaning changes because the focus shifted. The Prague School argued that you can't build a sentence without knowing what your listener is already paying attention to.
They also talked about markedness, this
Yeah.
idea that some words are sort of the defaults and others are more specific.
Marked and unmarked. The unmarked form is the default, the generic. The marked form carries extra information, extra baggage.
Like actor and actress.
That's a classic example. Actor can, in theory, apply to anyone. It's the broad category. Actress is marked specifically for gender.
And usually the marked term implies it's the exception to the rule.
Yes. Like how we say nurse, and culturally the default image is often female, so we have to say male nurse if it's a guy. Male nurse is the marked form.
You're highlighting a deviation from the cultural prototype. Okay, so then we get to M.A.K. Halliday. The source makes him sound like a pretty big deal. He talked about language as a social semiotic.
Halliday is huge. He basically said, forget the dictionary, look at the choices people make. He argued that every time we open our mouths, we're juggling three metafunctions all at once.
3 balls in the air. Okay, let's break them down.
First is the ideational. That's you talking about something in the world, an event, an idea. Second, the interpersonal. You're establishing a relationship with the person you're talking to.
Okay.
And third is the textual. You have to organize it all so it actually makes sense as a coherent message.
Let's try to apply this.
Yep.
Let's say I rear-ended someone's car. A little fender bender.
Oof.
Tough day.
So if I'm texting my wife, I might say, honey, I messed up. I just tapped a guy's bumper. Don't be mad.
Okay, look at the choices. Ideational, tapped a bumper. That minimizes the damage. Interpersonal, honey, don't be mad. You're appealing for mercy. You're establishing intimacy.
Right. Now, what if I'm writing the official insurance report? You're definitely not going to write, I messed up.
No. I'd write something like, the vehicle made contact with the rear of the Honda Civic at an approximate speed of 5 miles per hour.
See the shift? The ideational part became precise and clinical. The interpersonal is gone. You're being distant, objective. And the whole textual structure is formal. Halliday calls this register.
So register is just a fancy way of saying, read the room.
Pretty much. He broke it down into field, what's happening, tenor, who the people are, and mode. Is it written or spoken?
Yeah.
We adjust our register constantly without even thinking about it.
Speaking of spoken, that's the next big chunk of the source. For a long time, linguists thought spoken language was just garbage.
They called it degenerate, yeah. Full of broken sentences, ums. They thought real pure language was in books, but then researchers realized speech has its own incredibly strict system.
This is where we get to deixis, which I still think sounds like a medical condition.
It does. I'm suffering from a bout of deixis.
Exactly.
It's Greek for pointing. Think about this. If you found a piece of paper on the street that said, "Meet me here in 1 hour," would that be useful?
No. Here could be anywhere. And 1 hour from when? It's meaningless.
Exactly. Words like here, there, now, then I, you, this, that. These are shifters. Their definitions are empty until you plug them into a specific context.
They're like variables in algebra. X equaled whatever we decide it equals in this moment.
Yes. And we use them constantly. If I say I am talking to you, and then you say I am talking to you, the word I has completely swapped bodies. It's a miracle we don't get confused more often.
Then you have conversation analysis. This is the nitty-gritty of how we take turns.
It sounds so simple, but it's a high-wire act. We have things called adjacency pairs.
Yeah.
These are call and response patterns. If I say hello, you are socially obligated to say hello back.
And if I don't? If I just stare at you in silence?
It's physically uncomfortable. It's a dispreferred response.
Yeah.
The silence becomes heavy, meaningful. You'd immediately think, did he not hear me? Is he angry with me? What's going on?
That silence isn't just empty air. It's a signal.
A loud one. Silence in a conversation can be a thunderclap. And we also do a lot of work to repair conversations. If we talk over each other, one of us stops, apologizes, and yields the floor. We are constantly managing the flow.
It reminds me of the section on sociolinguistics and William Labov. He was the one who studied how social class affects the way we pronounce things.
The famous New York City department store study. He went to 3 stores, Saks, Macy's, and S. Kleinso, high, middle, and low price points, and he'd ask for items on the 4th floor.
To see if they'd pronounce the R sound?
Exactly. And what he found was that the higher the prestige of the store, the more likely the staff were to pronounce that R. The lower the prestige, the more likely they were to drop it and say, fa, fa.
So the sound of your voice can be like a social ID card.
It can be.
Yeah.
But the fascinating thing is, we all do it. We all code switch. You don't speak the same way in a job interview as you do at a bar with your friends. You are performing an identity.
Which brings us to Irving Goffman and the idea of face.
Life as theater. Goffman's whole thing was that we are all actors on a stage, and face is your positive social value. It's your dignity, your self-image.
I relate to this so much. You know when you trip on the sidewalk, and before you even check if you're hurt, the first thing you do is look around to see if anyone saw you.
That is pure face work. You're trying to save face. And in conversation, we're constantly working to save each other's face.
That's why we say things like, I could be wrong, but, or this might be a silly question, instead of just blurting out, you're wrong.
We soften the language, we hedge, we do it to avoid threatening the other person's face. If we don't, we're seen as rude or aggressive or just socially clumsy.
So language isn't just about transferring data. It's a constant, delicate negotiation of egos.
Which leads us to the final and maybe the most powerful concept in the source, speech acts.
This is the idea that just saying something is doing something.
Right. This came from Austin and Searle. They pointed out that some sentences describe the world like, the cat is on the mat, but other sentences change the world.
The classic example is at a wedding, isn't it?
It is. I now pronounce you husband and wife. When the officiant says those words, under the right conditions, your social reality changes. You go from being 2 single people to being a married couple. The words did that.
But I can't just walk up to 2 random people on the street and say, I pronounce you married. It wouldn't stick.
No, because you need what they call the felicity conditions. You need the right authority, the right license, the right venue, the right people.
It strikes me that I apologize is one of these 2.
It absolutely is. When I say I apologize, I'm not reporting on an apology that's happening somewhere else. I am performing the act of apologizing right then and there.
But what about the classic non-apology apology? I'm sorry if you were offended.
Ugh, the worst.
It's the worst. Why?
Because it mimics the grammatical form of the speech act, but it dodges the responsibility. It fails the felicity conditions. It violates the spirit of the act.
This all connects to the very last section in the source. Critical discourse analysis, or CDA. This is where it gets political. This is about power.
CDA basically says, wake up. Text is never neutral. Every single time someone speaks or writes, they are making choices that reveal their ideology, their worldview.
Like the passive voice thing we talked about earlier.
Exactly. If a news report says 5 civilians were killed, that's very different from saying the army killed 5 civilians.
The first one, it just happened, like bad weather. It hides who did the killing.
And CDA asks, why did the writer make that choice? Who are they protecting? Who holds the power in this sentence? And who is having their agency erased?
It's a way of reading between the lines to see the power structures that are baked into the language itself.
And it brings us to the final big idea, that language and context co-constitute each other.
That's a heavy phrase, co-constitute.
It just means it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
The context shapes how you speak. You whisper in a library because it's a library. But by whispering, you are also actively creating the library atmosphere. If everyone suddenly started shouting, it would stop being a library and it would start being a riot.
We're building the world with our words as we go along.
We are. Constantly.
This has been a lot, but in the best way. I feel like I need to be much more careful with my words from now on.
Or just more aware. The thing is, you're already doing all of this. You're a master of register and facework and deixes. You just didn't know the names for it.
Thank you so much for walking us through this. It's really fascinating stuff.
My pleasure. It was fun.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you for one last thought.
Yeah.
Something for the listener to take away and chew on.
Okay. Well, we've spent this whole time talking about how meaning depends on context, on the time, the place, the speaker, the listener. And we know that the world is always, always changing. The now of 5 minutes ago is gone forever.
Right.
So here's the question. If the context is never exactly the same twice, is it even possible to say the same thing twice? Or does every single sentence we speak, every utterance, carry a brand new, unique meaning that has never existed before and will never, ever exist again?
That is both beautiful and slightly terrifying. I'm going to go sit in silence and think about that. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.